did you hear the officer?
Sorry,
so
say again?
if this person wants to come in with these, we are refusing them entry to this facility. Okay.
So Heidi has graciously volunteered to be here to share her experience. She's not being paid anything to be here. She's sort of no stake in what goes on in Ontario, and so you know, she volunteered to be here to share her experience, and so we appreciate her doing that. And you know, the point was to try to answer some questions about development that she's seen, you know, to share an alternative perspective, I guess. You know, sort of with no vested interest. With what goes on in Ontario.
So you'll be bringing in somebody who's a victim next time, right? Because you're going to be double.
Do you need a question card? Because there's
I can have more, sure. It's not a question.
So again, as I said,
Clarification.
energy is,
I can do another
is an increasingly important part of the supply mix in Ontario and also across Canada. And so, yeah, as I said, the point of tonight is to have an opportunity to hear from someone who's had a history of living beside the machines, and you know, long history of
What about someone who's a victim of wind turbines?
Sponsor that too.
We need that sponsored. We want to hear the other side of it.
I'm sure you've had an event with people like that as well.
People like that? People,
wow.
That's our neighbors. That's our community.
That is the people
so
that we...
The point of tonight is to have a respectful dialogue, to ask questions, to raise some concerns.
Wait until the question and answer period.
So next
I'm
slide.
actually asking you guys to leave, please.
And so, I wanted to say, when I originally was putting this together, I wanted to say that, you know, we're not
The police can't be called. It's private property. You would be trespassing.
It's a public meeting.
On private property.
It's a public meeting.
Because as I said, so that's just the stage I wanted to set, so the context, so you know why we're here, why we're trying to have a discussion, why we're trying to you know, bring a different perspective, and we understand that it's obviously, this is not our, you know, the perspective we're bringing is not exactly what's going on in Ontario. But the reality is, you know, this is a community that's had, or Heidi's from a community that's had a long experience with this technology, and so, with that, that's sort of the stage I want to set. I'd like to you know, just remind everyone that there are decisions we're making about energy, whether we're consuming it, how we're supplying it. In reality, Ontario and Alberta, in spite of being a huge country, in a lot of ways are very much still.
But there are some things going on in the community that are hard to take, right? The power line development, this is not near our place. This is on the way into town, about 15 kilometers from our place. I still don't know why they put this one up. It's an eyesore. They're poorly planned. They're placed in not very appropriate places. Next slide. I like how it's right in front of I would say, one of the most spectacular bits of scenery in the world. That's the crown of the continent, the Rocky Mountains, and it's an amazing viewscape. Waterton, a World Heritage Site, is in that viewscape. Next slide.
Yeah.
The South Porcupine Landowners Group, who my husband and I became a part of, as well as Southern Alberta Land Trust Society and quite a few other groups, hired a research scientist to conduct a cumulative effects study, because you can't just look at one development, one bit at a time, and that seems to be how we're forced to look at developments in our area. So the cumulative effects study was conducted. We put in, we donated a lot of money to get that done, and it was quite an eye-opener, and it's just basically, even at incremental bits of moving forward, doing little things, in 20 years you have a huge change in your landscape. And two of the biggest ones that I remember are gravel pits and linear features like power lines. The power lines were so poorly planned, they've held up projects. They proposed one to us. It was already filled to capacity in the proposal stage. And alternative plan B was to go right through the Porcupine Hills, which is all fescue grassland, a rare habitat, and then zip right on by World Heritage Site, Hedge Smashed In, Buffalo Jump. It was unacceptable, and many of my ranching neighbors spent hours and hours and hours fighting it, saying if you can bury lines in Europe, why can't you bury lines here? And really, you shouldn't be burying lines in fescue grassland. They moved them, but they still put up a whole power line that's already filled to capacity, so now they have to do it again.
As an environmentalist, as I am, how do you feel about the Ontario Liberal government allowing turbines and transmission lines through environmentally sensitive areas?
It's really none of my business. I don't want to. I'm here to tell my personal story, and that's all I can do. So I can't answer that.
So you can't comment on one transmission line
In Ontario.
but you can comment on one in Alberta.
I hear for every green job, 2 to 3 jobs are lost. We must be concerned about everyone. What are you going to do for those who have lost their jobs in other energy fields? This question comes from Donna.
I missed the question. Me too.
Yeah, there's been a study that came out of Spain that suggested that, but it's been widely discredited and having not been peer reviewed. I think it was the New York Times or even in the Washington Post that sort of discredited that particular study. In fact, we're seeing in Germany's got about 400,000 people employed in renewable energy right now. It's their second largest industry. Automobile manufacturing is their largest. Renewable energy is number 2. And so there are definitely options in developing alternatives. And one of the reasons is, I mean, obviously what we're struggling with is that we see these technologies because we need more of them. You can't get as much energy out of a wind turbine or a solar panel as you can out of a nuclear plant or a coal plant. And so we are, and one of the reasons is, so I guess what it comes down to from an employment point of view is that we need more people to build those and to maintain them because it is a more diffuse use of energy. And so it's no surprise, I think, that renewable energy technologies tend to employ more people.
I overheard your greeter talking to a TVO videographer downstairs. He was talking to her about the meeting in Grand Bend last night and how there was opposition. You are right, we were in opposition. He went on to say that they didn't expect us, quote unquote, here tonight. Well, we are. Okay, has sound ever been measured at any of the wind development projects at Pincher Creek using either G-weighted or unweighted measurement protocol? There's a second question to that, but I'll get this. Oh, sorry, no, hang on, this is the same question. To your knowledge, is future use of either G-weighted or unweighted being discussed in Alberta?
I can't remember a lot of stuff. It spurred a memory. Yeah, they put a sound meter up in our yard. They asked if that was okay, and they were just testing. And I mean, we had no issues, so we didn't ask for the results, but I guess we could if we wanted to. I'm sorry, I'm a geologist. I don't know how to do.
So Heidi said she doesn't know the answer to that. Is it possible for you to believe that after 3 years of living at 1.7 kilometers from my closest turbine, 1.65 megawatts, I have had to leave that house for sleep and avoid vertigo attacks?
You can believe.
Is it possible for you to believe that?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think, I mean, most of the health studies have suggested that would be a far greater distance, I think, that would cause any sort of annoyance. I mean, most of the health studies that have been done in Ontario, and there's obviously been many that have been done internationally, would suggest that's there's obviously one done by the Chatham-Kent. And I'll give you some that are done. I can find some that are for Europe if you want.
Heidi, are people living near your area, village, getting sick? Are their health and animals getting sick? Well, they are here. This is real and true. What is your opinion on this?
None of my animals are really are getting sick, and if they did, I would find out where it was from. I mean, there's all sorts of diseases in the area. There's West Nile, there's all sorts of things, but none of my animals are all healthy. I don't see very many sick animals around. That's my observation.
People in the village.
What about people, Heidi? The people and...
Have there been any other complaints?
Does anybody live there?
There's 9 houses, and I'm just going to specifically talk about Summerview Wind Farm, which is the nearest one to us. And there are 9 homes in the area where the wind farm is. And there's nothing that I've heard from any of my neighbors, and we're pretty close contact with them.
Signed up?
Tim, do you think that it is okay for wind turbine companies to take 42,000 hectares of prime agricultural land in a small community of 3,000 residents?
It's pretty tough to answer detailed questions like that in a forum like this. I think you can appreciate that. But the reality of it is, some of those decisions are up to farmers, whether they want to put what they want to develop on their land. Also, obviously food is something that's incredibly important to all of us, but so is energy. And so we need to put...
The energy won't make any difference if we're dead from no lack of food.
We need energy as much as we need food these days, and so energy development has to happen somewhere.
We're selling our energy to the state.
Question for Heidi. Your situation is not like our situation, is it? Please answer this question honestly.
No, good one.
That was from Donna.
I think I did answer that, and you're right, my situation is different, but I maybe did some things and asked some questions that helped me into a better situation.
Heidi, how tall are the turbines in comparison to our 550 feet turbines? So how tall are the turbines near your property?
They're 80 meters. I don't remember a whole lot of specifics, but they're tall. 80 meters is probably a good guess.
240? That's not a comparison.
Heidi, how do you expect turbines?
Sorry, meters, you mean multiply feet, multiply meters by 3, so about 240, about the same height.
How do you expect turbines to move the power without transmission lines that produce stray voltage?
There's different ways to move energy. Summerview Wind Farm buried most of their lines in ground that was already disturbed, it was already cultivated. We have huge machines that our neighbors use to cultivate it too, and they have no problem driving over the buried lines, from what I can see. We're going to need transmission lines, but maybe we should plan them really well. Maybe we should all get involved and plan what we want as a community, and that's what I'm hoping to do in my community. And maybe we can't afford to bury them. Maybe we need to be looking at that. It's a higher cost, but maybe in the long run, it will be a cheaper cost, and that's the question that goes through my mind every time I see a transmission line. That's my answer.
They're stringing around the school too.
Things in common. Houses surrounded by IWTs. Do you get paid to have IWTs near you, and how much? IWT. Can anyone clarify what Industrial Wind Turbine. Wow. I'm the facilitator. Things in common. Houses surrounded by IWTs. Do you get paid to have industrial wind turbines near you, and how much? How much do you get paid to have industrial wind turbines near you?
We don't get wind revenue.
What do you get?
You can contribute to the wind.
Okay. There's a reserve in the Haldeman concerned about native hunting. You say you are working with First Nations. What is their greatest fear? This is from Donna. This is a question for Tim. So what is the greatest fear of the First Nations that you work with?
Well, I mean, I really hate speaking on behalf of First Nations, so I'm very hesitant to answer that question. But in my experience, usually why we've been called to the communities has been to reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels, and to look for economic diversification opportunities. So that's generally why we called in, but you know, every community is going to have a different experience, and that's really not you know, blanket statement.
For Heidi or Tim, how do you feel about 16 turbines around an elementary school and 2 large transmission lines as well? Is this all right with you? Is the health and life of children not important to you? It's for Heidi or Tim.
I mean, I don't know the details of the question. Everything always depends on scale, so it depends on how close things are to the school. 550 meters?
550 meters from the kids.
Well, again, I can't speak on individual projects without knowing anything scientific data about specific projects. So
within 3 kilometers.
We would need, well, within 3 kilometers is quite a ways away.
This next question is a diagram, and it's similar to a question we heard earlier. The diagram has a school in the center and a circle with 16 turbines inside, and there's a 3-kilometer radius drawn. It says, Adelaide, W.G. McDonald School, 300 students, a dozen with special needs. How is this ethical?
And 16 turbines within the 3 kilometers.
Yeah, 16 kilometers in a
16
turbines in a 3-kilometer radius.
Criminal.
How is this ethical?
Knowing what you know.
Well, we can't sort of comment on, I mean, I can't stand here and give a scientific opinion based on a cue card, so we would obviously have to do research, I think.
Ottawa-based scientists have implied in their published studies that disruption of their homes and property will of necessity need to be sacrificed, so their homes and property need to be sacrificed, and that such sacrifice is warranted and justified. Do you agree that sacrificing property is a necessity?
If we don't start conserving energy, we will be sacrificing, all of us will be sacrificing our future. We have to start working together and finding new ways of powering our society, new ways of doing it without leaving possible legacies of uranium or radioactivity or pollution that destroys our water and air.
So let's sacrifice the people in rural Ontario.
So we've actually, there are groups that are trying to look at this question, and it's not an easy question because we, as Heidi said, we consume a hell of a lot of power and a hell of a lot of energy. And the fact of the matter is, something happens in someone's backyard, and it's happening right now. And so, you know, one of the realities in Ontario is we don't see often other people's backyards where the stuff is happening, but we're still, you know, filling our cars and we're still having to heat our homes with natural gas. But the reality is that also does happen in someone else's backyard, and people are being expropriated for that as well. And so it's not an easy challenge.
We're being forced from our homes without compensation.
Well, we've got to stick to the questions to be fair to everyone who's put there. Okay, well, we've got to stick to the questions. So, no, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the amount of energy, Heidi said it clearly, the amount of energy we use is a huge challenge for us to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. And you can look at the numbers, and we've been trying to figure out ways, you know, alternative scenarios. And the fact of the matter is, it's really difficult to get to scenarios where we need to get to if we want to be ultimately powering our country and our world sustainably. And so, you know, there is going to be nothing without, there's no perfect solution at the end of the day. There's no technology that doesn't have some impact. And so I just think we need to also remember that the energy we consume today does have impact in other people's backyards as well.
We've heard Heidi's story and can acknowledge that her story is vastly different than others whose stories she heard about perhaps last night. You people who have had to leave their homes because of trouble with low-frequency noise and dirty electricity. Will you admit this is happening, that people are leaving their homes because of trouble with low-frequency noise and dirty electricity?
I don't know. I need to spend more time and do a lot more listening for the second part of the question. The first part of the question where you're admitting that, or saying that my story is so vastly different, and I'm going to relate that to something that I see a lot of on my farm, which is horse manure. And in fact, when a horse deposits a pile of manure, there's a lot of good grain in there, and there's a lot of birds that come and they eat that grain. And maybe there's something that I've said that is valuable to somebody, and maybe it's going to help us all protect our future for our kids.
Okay, next question. Is the fact that we aren't allowed to speak another way to try and not hear our voices, our stories, or our concerns? Why are we not able or allowed to speak for ourselves or be heard for that matter? We've been silenced enough, thank you, by our own government and now you. We selected this format in response to some of our other engagements, and this is meant to be a time for people to hear Heidi's story. If people are not interested in hearing Heidi's story, they're not required to be here. So we've chosen this format such that we can get through Heidi's story and hear from as many people as possible. So that's why we chose the format we chose tonight. And that was my decision. Tim, you received 42.4% consulting. Who paid you for this consultation? Who paid you for this consultation?
The money to help obviously those expenses that went into tonight. That money largely came from donations that were made to the Institute, as well as some public education outreach grants that we received.
Who made it? By who?
Who made the money?
Who made the donations?
We get donations to the Institute all the time. So
Who?
No, individual.
Suncor?
Yeah. People donate to the Institute for all sorts of reasons, and I don't know. We have internal decision making in terms of where that money goes, and so the decision was to try to have a public dialogue about what we feel is an important issue.
It's not